Welcome to Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast about everything from Jesus to joinery and talk about it all. So, Tom, I scored a killer deal on a new miter saw. Well, new to me. So I was on Facebook Marketplace, as you do. Probably the only reason I have Facebook is to look on Marketplace. And somebody locally to me he was actually only like 10 miles from me. Posted one of the Delta miter saws that have like the knuckle thing to where it's like a sliding miter saw, but you can back it right up to a wall. And they're like $600 new. And he posted it and he wanted $350 for it. I'm like, that's a deal, but I'm not paying $350 for it. And so as I started Facebook creeping, I realized we had a lot of mutual friends. And I'm like, I don't know this guy, but we know a lot of the same people. And so I messaged him and took my boy with me, and we met up, went to his house yesterday, which would be Saturday afternoon. And devout believer, he was listening to worship music in his shop, and come to find out we know a lot of the same people. And crazy story how he got the miter saw and why he was selling it, and how I benefited from it is he ordered it off of Menards. It was like they're having like a 1-day sale on it. And so he ordered one and it came in and he said the box looked like the box from Ace Ventura Pet Detective, you know, and yeah, opened it up and it actually had the place where you would like set your wood on, like the flat surface had like a crack in it. And so he took pictures of it and he emailed Menards and he's like, hey, I don't accept this. You guys need to make this right. And they said, you are 100% right. We'll send you another one and you can keep that one. And so they sent him another one. It came in fine. And he's like, I don't need two. So he put the one that I bought from him up for sale. It works perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It just has there's like a piece underneath of it. I don't know. But anyways, he actually put epoxy on it and kind of, stiffened it up, but it's absolutely fine. And so I ended up getting it for $275. And I gave him a jar of my finish just as hey, try this out, But yeah, so I was really happy with that. I've got an old Ryobi that has like the two poles, but the poles go out the back. And so you can't have it but like 3 foot from a wall because, those poles come out. And it's a big 12-inch and it's really loud and it's accurate enough. But I've been wanting to upgrade it because I don't like to use it because it's so big and bulky and stuff. And so, works out. So I posted mine on Facebook. Haven't got any messages about it yet. I mean, I almost give it to somebody because I paid like $125 for it 5 or 6 years ago off Facebook. And I mean, I've trimmed out 2 houses with it and done all kinds of woodwork, and it doesn't owe me a dime. And so, I'm like, if somebody comes here and they lowball me, I'm gonna bless them and I'm gonna say, yeah, sure, whatever, because I just don't need it now. But yeah, so I got a new miter saw. I'm really happy with it. Now I'm gonna work on doing like a dedicated miter saw kind of stand thing area, but we'll talk about that more in the shop talk. But how are you doing, man?
I'm tired, man. I ain't gonna lie.
Amen.
I have been for the last few days sitting at the computer learning Vectric software so I could get my CNC going, and had I had another hour before we recorded tonight, I probably would have ran my first file. I have gone through the whole software training program and got it to where I can make files, and then went through the machine and training things and had everything almost set up, ready to go. So just overcoming that fear and getting it done. I'm excited. I actually have a sign that I got to make on it this week. So I kind of forced myself, like,
you gotta go. Yeah.
Typically I just scroll saw, bandsaw out any type of sign. And, but this one, I really need the CNC for it. And I could do it without it, but it just take me a long time. And so I just had to say, man, I'm putting everything else aside and spend the time learning. And that's why I've had this thing so long and keep this always got to work on the farm, got to go install a bus route, got to work on this, work on that. And it kind of, I looked at it as a hobby, kind of like riding a bicycle or snowboard. It's like, do it when I have time, but I really need to get it going and make some money. So this week I was like, it's happening. This is the week. So yeah, I'm excited. I'll be sending you a picture tomorrow of something routed.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have a Jenny bit?
No, but I'm going to be ordering. So when I ordered, and the only reason I don't have them yet is just simply because I need the money to buy them. Had to pay my daughter's tuition last month and auto insurance. And then this month I've got to pay the homeowner's insurance and then the property taxes. And so when I ordered my CNC, they had a starter set of bits, and I know they're not as good, but I know I'm going to mess them up and break them. And so after I do, but I also landed a big sign job this week. So I'm just going to mess up all these cheap bits that I got, and then I'm going to order one of all of Cody's bits and get in here. But,
Man,
yeah,
that's awesome.
So
I'm interested to see if you need me to loan you some money. That sounds like you've had a heavy month.
It's like,
oh man,
it all rains at one time, and because I pay all my bills once a year. Like the only thing I don't pay once a year is the cable bill, electric bill, and the water bill. Everything else, I just hate monthly bills. So the downside is it just all seems to fall in the spring. So, but it is what it is. And winter time is my slowest time for my business. So it just is what it is. And then I'll save up over summer and do it all again next spring,
Yeah, man. Well,
if you want to send me some money, go ahead.
Right. We do our auto insurance once a year, which we didn't start doing that, honestly, to be honest with you, until a few years ago when I got a job that paid really well, and we were able to, because it was hard for us to, fork out. I think ours is, I don't remember what it is, 15 or 1600 a year or something for ours. And so it was just hard for us to do that at once. But yeah, when I finally got into a management role at work and stuff like that, it was like, okay, let's start, doing once a year, because it's nice not having that 120, 150 or whatever it is dollar a month, payment. So I'm with you there, man.
And you get a little bit of a discount. It's not a lot, but it's just nice not to deal with it. But the reason mine's so much is I have a 20-year-old, and that doubles the cost. She costs as much as me and her mom in 2 cars together. And and my agreement with her, when she was in high school, she paid her insurance and everything. But while she's going to college, we have an agreement that I'll pay her tuition as long as she keeps her grades up, keeps all of her scholarships, that I'll cover her insurance. She pays for her gas, all the maintenance on her car, her spending money and all that. But I want her to focus on her studies. And so I'm picking up the tab on insurance while she's in school. And in the summertime, she helps out. She'll save up and all. But I just got one more semester of college tuition, and then my daughter, our insurance should go down hopefully next year, because somebody told me after they drove for 5 years, which my daughter will be 21, but somebody else told me when they turned 25. And so
it's 25. Yeah, I remember mine and my wife's, because my wife and I were both, we were married when we both went through that period, and mine went down. I don't remember how much, but it was enough that I was like, whoa. And then hers, when she hit 25 or 26 or whatever, I don't remember but it is something like that. Yeah. So,
of course, by then my daughter will be graduated and on her own, so it won't matter. She'll
Yeah,
be paying.
often married. She'd be married to a doctor, should be a doctor. Yeah, man.
Me and my wife always joke about that, she's probably going to meet some doctor in school, and then the two of them could be able to support us when we get old, because they're going to make a lot more than me and her.
Right. But man, before we get into the Bible talk, just want to say we really appreciate all of you that listen. And if you've ever thought like, hey, I want to support Faith Talks Wood podcast, there's a few ways you can do that. Of course, if you want to do it monetarily, patreon.com/Faith Talks Wood. That will get you the podcast. I guess it's like 3 days early. We record and then I post it to all the patrons on Sunday mornings. And so you get that a little bit early. And then we just sent out cards with some stickers to all of our patrons last week. And so if you want to support us that way, there's several levels. We really appreciate all of you guys that do support us. So thank you for that. Give us a 5-star review on Apple. It goes a long way. There's a lot of you, most of you listen on Apple, so that helps. And then pray for us. We enjoy this podcast. We believe that it is something that God has ordained us to do. And so praying for us goes a long way. So thank you for all of our patron supporters. Thank you for all of you that listen. And well, Brother Tom, it's your Bible talk. Let's hear what the Lord's put on your heart.
Yeah, man. So today, as we're recording this, is actually Easter. And, Jesus rose. And for all of us who believe, we have new life. And so I want to read today from Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. And just kind of thinking about what is our identity as we become Christians, as we walk a new life in Christ. Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. For you died to this life, and your real life is hidden with Christ in God. And when Christ, who is your life, is revealed to the whole world, you will share in all his glory. So put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, and evil desires. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater, worshiping the things of this world. Because of these sins, the anger of God is coming. You used to do these things when your life was still part of this world, but now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Don't lie to each other, for you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all its wicked deeds. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. In this new life, it doesn't matter if you are a Jew or a Gentile, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbaric, uncivilized, slave, or free. Christ is all that matters, and He lives in all of us. Since God chose you to be the holy people He loves, you must clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony. And let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts. For as members of one body, you are called to live in peace and always be thankful. Let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. Teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom He gives. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through Him to God the Father. So one thing before we become Christians, I think often we identify as whatever our profession is, whether for Will, that would be a IT director. For me, that would be a sign installer. For you, it might be a full-time woodworker or banker or whatever it is you might do for a living. We identify as Republicans or Democrats with our political party. We identify as, a football player or a motorcyclist or whatever our hobbies are. And all these things that are nothing wrong with, but are of the world. Once we become a Christian, now our life needs to come from a whole different perspective. Granted, we're still going to go to work and do our job, but we're not going to work to be an IT director or be a sign installer. We're going to work as a Christian, and that is our mission field. We just happen to be in the mission field as an IT director or a sign installer. When we're out in the world and political stuff, we're Christians first, and then we vote based on our values, not based on political lines. Our hobbies, same thing. They then need to glorify God. It's not what we identify as. And as we read through this passage, it talks about throwing off our old self and putting on our new. It says, but now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, and malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Don't lie to each other, for you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all the wicked ways. Put on your new nature and be renewed. And it says on down, clothe yourselves with a tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And it says don't be easily offended, to forgive one another. So this is the new us when we're at work, when we're out doing whatever it is. It says right there at the end of the passage, for whatever you do or say, do it all as a representative of the Lord Jesus. Today is such a glorious day that Christ rose. We so often think about the cross and what all he did to sacrifice for our sins. But man, it was a party in my church this morning, and I loved it. I say a party. It was just an excitement of joy and singing and songs, as it says here, that we're supposed to sing with joy from our hearts and worship the Lord. And man, how awesome is it that he rose 3 days later and we have a new life. We have hope, man. And so I just thinking about Easter and everything, and it's just gave me the thought to talk about, what it is to live that new life when we're out there. Because granted, we're still here on earth. We're in the world. We got to go to work, going to do our hobbies, and we're going to vote this November. But remember, we're first Christians, and that is what we're representing in all that we do. Will, what's your thoughts on all this?
Man, I love it. One of the things when I read this, so Philippians chapter 2, or Colossians chapter 2, sorry, Paul is warning them against false teachers. And he's kind of like saying, hey, be careful. And then kind of encourages them, and then comes into chapter 3 saying, therefore. And so what that is because of what you know, this is what it is about, right? And so therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above. And so, one of the things is that you said it, like we often identify as, well, in this world, people are identifying as all kinds of craziness. But we often identify with what we think we are, when we should be identifying with what Christ says we are. And so it's not about what you do, but it's about what Christ has done through you, right? And so I always preach this, when I was in youth ministry, and even to this day. I mean, I'm not I'm not an IT guy. I'm a Christian, and like you said, I've been placed in a position to where I have influence over others, and God is going to use that in a way to help promote his kingdom. But in anything we do, and that's the thing too, like I want to encourage you guys that are listening that, maybe you drive a garbage truck, or maybe you're a waitress or a waiter, or maybe you feel like, I don't make crazy money and I feel like I'm a second class citizen. Bull. We are his workmanship. Um, and you are made in the image of God. And so your identity is first, you are a child of God. You are a Christian, right? And what does Christian mean? Little Christ. And so the things that you do, you should be doing through the lens of scripture and asking the Holy Spirit to work through you so that people, when they see you, they sense something different, right? It's not about, how much you can excel in the corporate world, but you may excel and God's going to ordain that. And if you always keep him first, know that he's going to help you and give you the guidance through those situations. But we're not identified by what we do, but we're identified by what Christ has done through us. And so it's so important, as identity is something that is getting so skewed in 2024 and in the last several years, that we hold firm to the identity in which Christ has placed on us because of today's Easter. Is he is risen indeed. And my pastor said this morning, he said, we always celebrate Christmas and we spend all this money, we do all this stuff, which is great, but his birth means nothing if he didn't die and rise again on the third day. And so our identity is in that. And it is important as Christians that we focus on that and not on the things of the world, not on all the accolades that you may get in a worldly perspective, but from the biblical perspective. And like it says, to clothe yourselves with a heart of mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And that is not something that the world has right now. And so when you do those things, you stick out like a sore thumb, and in a good way. People notice that, they see that, and they're drawn to that. And so, man, it's good stuff. I love it. Identity is so important. And, I think I talked last week about, I've been trying to understand women in the Bible because I have a daughter now, and it just kind of hit me in the last year of like, this is important. And so the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want to raise up my daughter in a wrong view of who she is as a woman. And I want to make sure that my perspective on who women are and who God has created them to be is from the Bible and not from a theological leaning, from some tradition. I want to make sure that it's scriptural. And so it's the same thing. I want to make sure that the identity that I'm placing on my daughter is correct. And so identity is something I'm really thinking of a lot right now. So well done, sir. I love it. Good stuff.
Man, and I hate to say it, had to go by the grocery store after church today and had to cut down through the middle aisle. Of course, they have all this candy, and it's so funny how the world has turned every single thing into a commercialized. We identify Christmas as a man in a red suit and packages under a tree, and then Easter as a rabbit and a chocolate egg. And it's like, but I looked up, ironically, I was like, how did the rabbit get started? And I looked up historically, and originally it was about, I think about a sacrifice of a meal or something. And then, of course, a fable started this and a fable started that. And for long, some company started capitalizing it. And I think it was I'm not sure if it was Hershey's or another chocolate. It was some chocolate company that did it first. And now the whole entire holiday from a worldly perspective is about candy, you know? And, but anyway, that's enough of that.
Well, it goes the same way with Christmas, St. Nicholas. I mean, they've really taken that and commercialized it and made it into an economic thing. But if you know, look up the history of St. Nicholas and who he was and what he did. And if my understanding is correct, it's been a while since I looked it up. I think he progressed the gospel. I mean, he was in it to win it in a sense, right? For win it for souls. And so, yeah, but we take that and then we, commercialize it. And that's with everything, any holiday, any sort of thing like that. We like to commercialize it. And I actually looked up when you said that, I looked up yesterday, where'd the term Easter come from? Like, what does that even mean? From what I read, has something to do with, the word originally meant dawn. And so, it was at dawn when the women went to anoint and check on Jesus and the tomb was gone. And so I don't know how true that is. It's just something I come across as I was just looked it up kind of on a side thought, like, where did this even come from? And so, now Easter bunny and all this stuff. And, I don't know. I don't like having candy in the house because it's not good for any of us. We don't give our kids candy. Like, my son has had one piece of chocolate today, and that's about all he'll get. And so, but if it's there, I'm not going to let it go to waste. And so I'll throw some in my lunchbox for work. And so I don't like having it in the house. We actually were talking about that today. My mother-in-law went over there for Easter dinner, and we're getting ready to leave. And she's like, hey, you guys want some pie and some cookies to take home with you? And my wife looks at me and looks at her, and she's like, we won't eat them. And she's like, because I had a piece of pie, like her pie, she's the best pie maker I've ever had in my life. Like, she makes the best apple pie. And she's like, what do you mean you don't eat it? And I just have a weird thing where I don't eat sweets at the house. Like, my wife could make a dozen cookies and be lucky if I have one. They'd be sitting on the counter. It's just not something that it's weird. My wife, she always is like, at first she always thought that I didn't like her baking, and she's a fantastic baker. I just don't eat sweets. And so, like, she'll make a pan of brownies or a batch of cookies, and I just won't. And so my wife was like, no, if you send pie home, she's like, I'll have to eat it because Will won't eat it. And so it's just kind of a weird thing. And I don't know why. It's not like I don't like sweets. I just won't eat them. It's just weird.
I don't like store-bought sweets. Like, not to say I never eat anything sweet from the store, but we don't buy that type stuff. But now you give me a homemade peach pie or apple pie, love it. My daughter loves to bake, and so anything homemade, I'm all about it. I love it.
And I like it in the moment, like cookies. I'll eat a cookie or two when they're hot, when they're fresh and it melts in your mouth. But after that, I don't really care about them. And the same thing, like cake. We did a cake for my daughter's birthday. I had one piece, and then the rest of it just sat in the fridge. I just don't. It's like a weird thing. I don't know why. And I mean, I have the weight to show that it looks like I like sweets, but I don't.
Most for me, the homemade baked stuff and for our family typically is kind of occasion type stuff, like you said, a birthday cake. Or my favorite is so for my birthday, ever since I can remember, my mom always made me a carrot cake as my favorite cake on the planet. And my daughter or my wife has always made me one. So every year on my birthday, I get a carrot cake. And then for Thanksgiving, I love pumpkin pie or apple pie. I like both of them. But yeah, it's typically. And then my daughter likes ice cream cake, so on her birthday, we always go to Cold Stone and get an ice cream cake for her. But yeah, most of the time that type stuff is seasonal, or my daughter is involved with a group at our church, a young adults group, and they get together and they'll do like potluck type stuff. And my daughter, every now and then, she'll get the dessert and she'll make something. She'll make a little extra for dad, that type of stuff. But yeah.
That's funny. So, what's 2 weeks ago was Pi Day, 3.14, right? And that's like the math equation, 3.14. So on March 13th or March 14th, most corporations, it's Pi Day, so everybody makes a pie and brings it into work. I forgot. I would have commissioned my mother-in-law to make a pie. But everybody brought pies in. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to try a piece of pie. And so I grabbed one small piece of like 3 different pies just to taste them. They were horrible. Like
they were store-bought.
No, they weren't. They were homemade, and they should not be making homemade pies, is what I'm saying. Like, they were nasty. And so I was telling my in-laws that at dinner tonight, and my father-in-law was like, well, next year commission Ma to make you a pie. I said, I'm going to, because my wife, she's not a pie baker. She probably could, but my mother-in-law has the crust. She just has it figured out. And whatever pie she touches, like she's won like the state fair stuff with it and all that. I mean, she's just phenomenal. So I'm like, yeah, next year I'm gonna bring a real pie. And it's funny enough, everybody brought all these pies. I tried apple. I tried 2 different apple pies. They both were disgusting. One of them, the apples weren't even cooked. They were still like hard and crunchy. And then a pumpkin pie, no good. They forgot something in it because it was no good. And then there was another one, but I was so disappointed because I wanted a slice of pie. Somebody brought in a Marie Callender's store-bought pie, and that was the best one. It was like a lemon meringue or something. It was good. And I was like, I hate that I ate a store-bought pie and it was good, but compared to the other ones, and I hope nobody that I work with listens to the podcast or gets offended by this, but y'all can't make pies and you just need to give it up. but man, what's been going on in the shop? I know you talked a little bit about the CNC stuff. Dive a little bit more into that. I'm curious to hear about what you've been going through and what else you got going on in the shop.
Yeah, I tell you the best thing. I actually got some shop time this week. I still worked out on the farm a lot this week, but I had to get in the shop and work on some commissions. And a few months ago, I bought a new blade for my bandsaw. I just hadn't taken the time to change it over. It's one of those things where a box came in, it's been sitting on the table, but I had to resaw a bunch of lumber this week. So I bought one of the wood slicer blades from Highland Lumber or Highland Woodworking. And buddy, that thing is money. That is the best investment I have made for the bandsaw yet, man. It cuts like butter. And I had to resaw a bunch of stuff. And man, it literally comes out feeling like you've already sanded it. It's crazy the difference. I'm because typically resaw, you feel like you got a rough sawn lumber. Man, I still had to sand it. I don't want to, pretend like I didn't sand, but I was amazed at how well that thing cuts. And I think I didn't have also maybe my tension set quite as right on the other blade I had. But man, I got that thing and set. It is dialed in, and I resawed a ton of lumber. I mean, you would not believe how accurate all the pieces came out. I couldn't believe it. What a difference it made. And that wood slicer blade, it's you know how you could get a thin kerf blade for your table saw? Well, it's a thinner blade than most, which bandsaw blades aren't crazy thick to start with. But, buddy, man, I love that thing. I was just blown away. So I had
What were you resawing?
So when we built our house, all the cedar posts on our house came in these 12-foot lengths, and because of the height of the post, and so I kept all the cutoffs. Well, those cutoffs, I'm making a 30-inch wide sign, and the cutoffs were 33 inches, and so, dude, I took these 8x8 posts and resawed them, got me some 4/4 stock out of it, turned all these leftover cuts. Man, absolutely beautiful glue up for this sign. And all out of scrap material. And then while I was at it, I went ahead and I wanted to see how well I could resaw some thin stuff. And so I took some leftover, and I was just blown away. I could not believe the difference that blade makes. So it's
I know I've heard of the wood slicer blade. Like, it's in the bandsaw community, woodworking community. People rave about it. I'd be interested to see what it would be like with like some oak or something a little bit harder. Not that I mean, I'm sure the cedar definitely made it shine, but on something harder, what it would be like. I'm sure it's still gonna be really good, but I'd be curious because I need to get a new one for mine. So
I also did some white oak, and it worked fantastic. Obviously, softer wood, it's just going to go through like butter, but I was just blown away more so by the accuracy that I was getting, and I think part of that is the blade. Part of it is I got the tension. I'm thinking my other one I didn't have quite tight enough, but it's so hard. But I watched a few videos on that a while back, and so I tried a couple different people's techniques and just to see the results. And but anyway, I got 3 signs that I'm working on. And then I got a cabinet that I got to build. So, but this week it'll all be about the sign. That eye clinic that I had done called me, and they wanted another sign. So I picked up another commission there. Praise God, because got to pay the property taxes and everything. So that came in at just the right time. But for me, though, this week it's all about the CNC, and I'm excited. So I bought the Learn Your CNC and Academy by Kyle. I forget what Kyle's last name is. He was at Workbench Con, but I had already bought it a while back, and very, very detailed, extensive program. I want to say it was like $300-400, but I'm talking like must be like 25-30 hours worth of training videos. I mean, it's a ton and insanely detailed. That young man has done a phenomenal job. And so I have watched every one of them now and have a very good understanding of the Vectric software. And so that has been my focus the last few days. And so I'm very excited about starting to make stuff on the CNC. So I'll shoot you some pics because I'll be running something tomorrow for sure. I might run something tonight, but yeah. What you got going on in the shop?
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Like I said earlier, my father-in-law, we were over there today and we went outside. They're actually, so they have a big barn. It's an old barn, probably built in the early 1900s, maybe before. And it's got a lean to it. And that's just over time, things settling and whatnot. And so they have a guy coming in. I think it's an Amish guy that's going to straighten the barn out. And so he has to empty everything out of the barn, every single thing off the walls, everything. And then they're going to take a 30 something foot white oak beam. And then they're going to basically pull the barn true and use the beam as a I don't know. But so him and I were out there talking, walking around the barn, and he was just kind of showing me some of the stuff. And he's also going to be building like a 40 by 60 building on the property. And he's like, I was thinking about this. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I'd love to get a Onefinity. He's like, I think we should look at going on halves on one at some point. And then he's like, and I also want to get a plasma cutter to be able to do a bunch of kind of stuff. And so we were just talking about CNCs tonight, which is kind of crazy. I never thought I'd want a CNC. I don't really have room for one now. When I build my shop eventually, I'll have room. But the more and more I get to know people like Cody and my buddy, Patrick and Jason, all these guys that have CNCs, now you're gonna have yours up and going. I'm kind of like curious about it a little bit more about some of the stuff you can do with them and how you can make money and just flattening stuff and doing all kinds of, there's so many things you could do with them. But it's just I need another hobby, like I need another hole in my head. And so it's just right now, it's just not the right time. But yeah, as far as me in the shop, I've been working on, I built the entry table for our house. Really happy with that. Simple joinery, just a dado, slotted the top and the shelf into the dados of the legs, and it's been fantastic. So I'm always really happy with that. She can put stuff down as she comes in the house. And I've got commissioned to do 2 frames for my wife. So she does these stained glass panels of, what would you call it? Mosaics, or not mosaic, but like sceneries, right? Like mountain scene and this kind of stuff. And so she's got 2 of those that she needs frames for. I was going to, this afternoon, after we got home, I had a little bit of time before the podcast. I was going to go out to the shop and start milling down some wood, but ended up helping with some stuff around the house, doing some laundry and stuff, and then jumped on the podcast. But yeah, so got that. And then I've been working in Willie's wood finishes shop on a hard wax, or not hard wax, well, like a paste wax kind of thing. So I got what I think is dialed in pretty good. And so I'm going to be, I'll be sending you a jar of it, with a jar of finish and a jar of that to test out for me. Pretty happy with it. I've used it on my table saw, on my drill press. I've put it on wood because it's tung oil based as well, and it works fantastic. It's so yeah, pretty happy. Actually, that entry table I made, I finished it all in that paste wax instead of doing Willie's Wood Honey. I did it in that, and really what I should have done is done Willie's Wood Honey, let it cure, and then done the wax to kind of bring up the sheen. But I just wanted to try the wax out. So yeah, I've been working on that. I'm looking at kind of redoing the shop a little bit. So we've made some money, and the business is doing well, and the area in which I make the wood honey at, so in our town, there used to be, I think they're still around, but not like they were, a table company. So think of church tables, big 8-foot tables, right? They make those here. And so I think they've converted to doing other kind of wood stuff, but they make those tables. And so the guy had taken lockers from like a school that are 3 deep, put them on their side, and then put tables on top of it as a countertop. It's really goofy. So that's what's in my shop now, and it's pretty rough shape. And so I think I'm gonna rip them all out and put some cabinets or something in. I don't know. Still trying to figure that out on what we want to do, but I can't have anything down too long because that's where I'm making my money at, is making finish. And so it's like, it'd be like a weekend project of like ripping them out and putting stuff in. And so looking to do that. I'm taking a week off here in a couple weeks. And so we were originally going to rent a roll-off dumpster, and we're just going to junk everything. Well, my neighbor and his buddy, who are lower income people that scrap a lot. They enjoy scrapping and they make money off it that way. Talked to them, and we went over and walked around all the stuff, and like probably 80% of the stuff over there is scrappable. Like there's a lot of metal. I didn't even realize how much metal there was. And so now they want the metal. I said, you can have it. I just don't want it. It's going to go in a dumpster. Now I don't know if I want to spend the money on a dumpster yet until they're able to clear all that out. Because I don't want to waste money on a dumpster. And then, you know.
If I were you, I would take and use your tractor and that grapple, get everything out of the woods, bring it out to a spot, like, and all the metal stuff put in a pile, let them come do the work, get it all. And then anything that's not scrappable, put a pile and pile it up into a spot to see how much you actually have that you need. And then before you go spend the money on a dumpster,
right?
Because then if you've got it in a pile and then you figure out what size dumpster you need and you bring it in, have it sit, you could take it and then put it in the dumpster in a matter of no time, you know, because a lot of your time is going to be driving back and forth. And if it, I don't know, say it, because most of those dumpsters, they either rent by the pickup, by the day, by the week, by the month. And so the shorter time you have it, the less it's going to cost you. And if you get all that pulled out the woods and then let those guys get all that stuff that's scrappable out and then just see what's left, then do it.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. And actually, I think this weekend coming up would be my only weekend that I'd have time to do that before, like, I have that week of work off. So I may look at it this weekend, getting out there with a grapple, because I think my father-in-law made a similar kind of suggestion, like, hey, just get the stuff out of the woods and then decide on what you want to do. Because the other thing I want to do is where my wife parks at is next to the garage, and then I park in front of the garage, which is kind of like a little bit of an incline, and it's grass. I think at one point they may have had some gravel there, but it's grass that goes up to the garage. And there's a small, like, probably 4-foot pad in front of the garage where it comes out of the garage, cement pad. And so I want to get gravel. I want to pull up all the sod, and I want to make a decent couple parking spots. My wife's has like pea gravel on it, but it really could use some more gravel. And then I need some gravel back in the barn where the tractor sits and stuff back there. And so I'm thinking about getting 10 tons of gravel delivered to our house. And so now that's one of those things too, that like, I don't have to get it done all the way because gravel is going to be gravel and it's going to, you know, so with the tractor, I could get it knocked out in a day or day and a half, maybe.
Oh, you can do a truckload of gravel in a half a day.
Right.
You'd be amazed, unless you're having to drive it a long ways.
No, it'll be going like 20 or 30 feet from where I'm gonna have them dump it.
Yeah. Get as much as that dump truck will bring, because the cost of the gravel is nothing. The cost of the trip is what's so expensive, the actual dump truck. So don't
here it's 30, I think he said it was $32 a ton.
Yep.
For limestone, whatever gravel, just your normal kind of driveway gravel. And then it was $130 just to deliver it. And so that's why I was like, well, how much can you do in one load? He's like, I can do 10 tons in one load. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whole load.
So at that, I mean, it'll be, you know, I'll have $500 in it, you know, once everything's said and done, but at least at that point, I'll be able to get done everything I want to get done and not have to get another load. So yeah, that's one of the projects I'm looking to do. So I'm going to make those frames and, not too much more in the workshop right now. I did get that new miter saw, dude. Okay. So I got this Delta Cruiser. I had an old Ryobi. Like the saw itself is probably 10 years old, and I've had it for 5 years. It's been fine, but now you have the Capex, which is a whole other level. However, going from my Ryobi to this Delta cruiser is like going from a Yugo to like a Mercedes in my mind. Like it's so smooth. It has a brake on the blade. So when you let go of it, it stops within a matter of seconds. It has a shadow line instead of a laser. The laser on my Ryobi was never accurate, but the shadow line is always going to be accurate because it's a shadow that casts off the blade. And so the shadow line is really nice. I spent some time last night dialing it in, making sure it's nice and square. Everything's good to go. I'm excited just to use it. I never really use a miter saw. I usually use my table saw for everything. I usually break down stuff with my jigsaw, and I usually leave 2 or 3 inches over what my final dimension is going to be. And then unless it's huge pieces, I'll put it on my crosscut sled and I'll, cut pieces down on the table saw. And so the miter saw used to be something I used a lot, but I mean, I've done a lot of trim with it, and we're going to have to eventually retrim this house. And so I wanted a nice miter saw. And this one has a really nice depth stop feature. And so if I wanted to do like half laps and stuff, I could easily do it on that. And so that's kind of some of the stuff I want to test out with it and see how it works. But the Ryobi had a depth stop, but it was junk. It wasn't solid. It would, I know the Capex, I've seen guys do like fine furniture mortise or dados with the Capex.
Yeah. The Capex is amazing. I still, it's the only Festool product I wish I wouldn't have bought it. It's just because of the dust collection on it,
Right.
But if I had the other thing, I will say my DeWalt was not accurate at all. It had too much flex. The Festool does not, like, it is dead on accurate, but it also has a smaller cut. And I missed that part about my DeWalt, is the fact that I cut bigger pieces. But, like I said, those type cuts come around just rarely. Most everything I do on my table saw. So when I need the Capex, it is a nice saw. It just frustrates me about the dust collection, because that sucker, I swear, they say it collects 90% of the dust, and I'm telling you, I don't think it's much better than the DeWalt was. I don't.
Interesting.
Really don't. But it is what it is. For the price, it ought to suck up every piece of dust that comes out of it, in my opinion. But
right.
It is accurate, though. I will say that, and it has a lot of nice features on it. But
and for that money, it better take that dust and make another board out of it.
It's like, man.
But I will say, so I had the 12-inch Ryobi, just a big saw, and it had the prongs the rails that came out. This is a 10-inch Delta, but I've never cut anything on the Ryobi. Like I don't ever think I've needed the full, depth of what the Ryobi can cut. So I'm excited about the 10. It's smaller. It's quieter. It's kind of weird. The Ryobi, man, like, it's loud, just a crappier engine or motor, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so got that kind of fun. Going to be work. I think I'm going to build a shroud around it for dust.
That's what I'm going to do.
And then instead of having it to where it's hooked up to a shop vac, I think I'm going to build a shroud that goes up over it that has a 4-inch port on it that I can hook my dust collector up to, and have that negative pressure that'll pull all the dust up. Because I don't want to, I have one of the dust stopper things you put on a 5-gallon bucket and separate and stuff like that. I've never opened it. I'd much rather just use my dust collector if I can. So,
yeah, I've been planning on building, once I build me a miter station, get that permanently where I want it. I'm going to put do the same thing, put a shroud on the back, and then that way I can hook it to my dust collector, and it'll solve the problem. The one thing I will say about the Capex that I do like, and it's the one thing I hated about my DeWalt, is so the handle on the DeWalt was horizontal. And so to safely operate it, I had to operate it with my right hand. And, sometimes you need to operate with your left, and it was just very cumbersome. The Capex has theirs vertical, so you can operate it easily from either side of the saw. And that feature I really like, and along with some of the others, but,
See, I've felt that on a Capex like at Woodcraft before. I don't like that feeling. I'm used to the horizontal, come down, and that's the Delta is horizontal. So is my Ryobi. It's kind of like in the handgun world. I don't like the grip angle of a Glock. I just don't. I don't feel comfortable with one. Now, I've owned 3 of them.
if I'm using my right hand, I like the DeWalt better. It's more comfortable. Of course, I had one of those for 20 years. I burnt the motor up in it and then have the new version of it. And if I only operated it with my right hand, I like that handle by far better. The Capex, for me being short, is kind of awkward because I have to reach up and over to grab the lock. But once it's down, I can safely operate it left-handed or right-handed. Not that I operate it left-handed that much, but when I need to.
Interesting. So, but yeah, I don't think I have much more going on in the shop as far as that's concerned. Just wait for the weather to break. It's been cold and rainy here now. April showers bring May flowers. April 1st is tomorrow, and it's already started. It's just so wet and it's cold still. It's still like in the high 30s, low 40s, and that's just miserable if you're trying to be outside doing anything. So if it was that temperature and just sunny or even overcast, I'd be outside. But when it's even when it's just mist and like misty rain, it's just miserable. And so waiting for the weather to break to get some stuff going outside, and looking forward to that. But yeah, man. Side note, just want to let everybody know, if you're just tuning in this episode, but Tom and I are praying and looking into doing a Faith Talks Wood retreat. And we've had some people reach out, and people that said, hey, if you do it, I'm there. And I think I've had 3 or 4 people say that. And so if you are interested in doing a Faith Talks Wood retreat, shoot us a message. Email us at questions@faithtalkswood.com, or shoot Tom Rye a message on Instagram. And we'd love to just get your thoughts on it and go from there. But yeah, man, well, it's getting late. I am going to go spend a little bit of time with my wife, and then look forward to seeing some pictures of a CNC project completed. So
you will receive a text message tomorrow with a photo. I promise you that. So
that's awesome. Well, appreciate everybody. I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.